everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Plant Free MD. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chaffee. Today, I have a very special guest, uh, Jenny Mitich, who is joining us here from Chicagoland. Jenny, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, for people who don't know you, haven't come across you before, can you please tell us a bit about you?
Yeah, sure. So I've been doing the carnivore diet for almost 3 years in December, and I have a YouTube channel. I do carnivore educational content over there, lots of N of one experiments on myself and my husband, and lots of carnivore recipes. So that's kind of the short story. I could talk a little bit about how I got into carnivore if you'd like.
Please, yeah.
Yeah. So my husband was the one that actually found the carnivore diet. He found Dr. Ken Berry on YouTube, as many of us do. And at first, he told me about it because he wanted us to do it together. It's so much easier when you're doing things as a couple. And at the time, I had gained 70 pounds. When I was pregnant with my twins, I was having a hard time losing that extra weight. So I'd only lost, I don't know, maybe like 15 pounds, 20 pounds at that point. And I was just like, there's absolutely no way the carnivore diet can be healthy. How are you getting all
Mhm.
of the vitamins and minerals you need only eating meat and all that stuff that I used to think. I think a lot of people think that when they come to carnivore. But I continued to watch the videos with him. So over the next 6 months, I continued watching the videos and decided, you know what? I think I'm going to give this a try. I actually started the carnivore diet before my husband did, which
Mhm.
is so funny because he's the one that brought it to me.
Yeah.
But the first month, I lost 8 pounds and I saw a significant drop in my glucose levels. I had been wearing a continuous glucose monitor for fun because I'm a big data nerd. And my average glucose before was in the low 100s. But when I did carnivore for just a month, it went down into the 80s.
Nice.
Yeah, and that was enough of a like, whoa, is there something here for me to continue doing it? And now, like I said, almost 3 years, and now YouTube is my full-time job, teaching
Mhm.
other people how to do carnivore.
Great. And so, what are some of the other results? I mean, so you started losing a bit of weight, your blood sugar normalized pretty rapidly. What are some of the other health benefits that you've seen, and sort of maybe over the course of 3 years, what are sort of the things that you've seen overall?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I've lost a total of 50 pounds so
Great.
far since the beginning. Yeah. I have seen huge improvements in my mental health. So I used to have hardcore anxiety and depression since I was like 13. I self-medicated in my teens and 20s, drugs and alcohol.
Mm.
Had gotten clean, but still had some anxiety and depression stuff. That is completely gone. Completely. I don't even think about it anymore. It's just not part of my life. That was a huge deal. I've seen a lot of improvements just with like skin, oral health. Definitely put on a lot more muscle. It's
Nice.
easier to do so when you're working out in the gym. I'm
Mhm.
definitely a little bit more stacked than I was. Obviously, lost 50 pounds too.
Mhm.
But yeah, those are the big ones that I noticed.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, if you lost 50 pounds and you put on muscle, you probably lost maybe 60 pounds, 70 pounds of fat and put on,
Maybe.
10, 20 pounds of muscle too. That happens. That
Yeah.
happens a lot, which is
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
Yeah, I've seen that actually, especially when people are exercising and they sort of hit a weight loss stall and they're worried that they're not losing weight as quickly or maybe not losing weight at all, but they're exercising 4 days a week, they're lifting weights, they're sprinting, they feel good, their clothes are fitting more loosely, they're cinched up their belt 2 notches, but the weight on the scale is the same, and that's usually what's happening is they're offsetting the fat that they're losing with the muscle that they're gaining, and so the scale stays the same as well,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
good. And
Yeah,
and
the scale is like the worst measurement tool in our arsenal.
yeah.
I like what you said about the clothes are fitting looser. That's really what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
If stuff is starting to fit better. And then I also get a lot of DEXA scans just because I'm
Mhm.
always doing N-of-1 experiments on myself. So it's really interesting to see like, am I losing fat or am I losing lean mass, which
Mhm.
isn't just muscle on a DEXA scan, as you know.
Yeah.
But it's really, really interesting to see those numbers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Well, there are studies showing that too, that people on ketogenic diets versus other diets, that they can lose maybe more weight on a ketogenic diet or maybe similar weights. But when you look at the breakdown in body composition, they're losing a lot more fat on the ketogenic diet and they're actually gaining muscle. But so the total weight loss may be similar, but it's actually much more fat loss and actually muscle gain or lean body mass gain.
Right.
And the other ones, they will have lost this much weight, call it 20 pounds, but actually 4 of those pounds were lean body mass. And so that's actually not very clever. You don't want to
Yeah.
lose that. So it's much
Exactly.
better.
I think that, when people talk about wanting to lose weight, what they're really saying is they want to lose fat, not just
Correct.
weight. If
Yeah.
you're losing a bunch of lean mass, it's defeating the purpose
Yeah.
because you're less healthy. So it's the fat. We want to get rid of the fat.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's why they have to, like the Ozempic commercials, have to be very careful about their wording. It says, "Oh, if you want to lose weight, you can lose this weight, blah, 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 blah." Because 40% of that weight is going to be lean body mass. And
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
especially if you're not watching your protein and doing strength training and
correct.
taking really high doses.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and I think that's the main one too, because people are just taking the drug and they say, "Oh, I can just eat and do whatever," and you just give me a medication that will allow me to be slim and healthy, even though I have all these bad habits, and that's just not going to happen. And
Agreed.
so they don't actually get any training on how to change their eating habits. And actually, a lot of times their eating habits get worse because they can't eat much. They feel sick all the time. So you just eat a bit of candy and sweets and things like that to give them like a quick hit of energy because they don't feel very good and energized. And so they end up eating worse overall, and they can get loss of lean body mass, loss of health, certainly, lose their hair, lose their vision, other sorts of things. And then when they sort of come off the Ozempic or it stops working for them or something like that, then all of a sudden they have even worse eating habits and they end up regaining more fat than the
Right.
total weight that they lost. And the weight was that lean body mass. They don't regain that lean body mass. And so maybe they lost 50 pounds of fat, 20 pounds of lean body mass, but then they regain 80 pounds of just fat. And so it's actually
Right.
worse off than when they started, unfortunately.
Exactly. Yeah, the conventional dosaging and the lack of dietary advice and advice on movement with just how most people are taking the GLP ones are
Yeah.
it's really bad.
Yeah. I have
Yeah.
seen some people take smaller doses, even like micro
Right.
doses, even like diabetic doses or lower. And that can help with the sort of the cravings early on and sort of getting onto a good diet. And that can help be like a bridge to get people to be able to stick with like a carnivore diet or something like that. But that, the cravings as you know, they go away pretty quickly. After,
Yeah.
sort of a couple of weeks, your carb cravings, sugar cravings tend to go away on their own. As long as you're eating enough, you're getting enough proteins and fats and things like that, then
Exactly.
your cravings will sort of be gone. And so really you just need something that, well, you can just sort of push through it. And that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
If you just can't do that and you wanted some like low dose, micro dose of something like Ozempic, but you can use other things. There's phentermine, there's metformin. There's a lot of other things that people actually use traditionally for exactly that as a short-term sort of suppressing of those cravings. But then after 2, 3 weeks, you really don't need this stuff. So either
Right.
way, you shouldn't think about this as like a long-term solution,
Yeah.
even at a microdose. It's just sort of, okay, 3 weeks to get me on board, and then the diet's going to take me the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I think, you don't start with the drug. You start
Yeah,
with the diet and the movement, and then
exactly.
if you need to dial things in down the road after trying everything else, because it's also very expensive.
Mm, definitely.
So yeah, cost prohibitive and yeah, it's something to be careful with. But yeah, my thoughts on that have evolved over the past year just because I've gone to like the Symposium for Metabolic Health. There were a few
Mm,
practitioners that were talking about using it with their patients, but very specific cases, lower doses,
yeah,
monitored closely with a therapeutic ketogenic diet, high protein, and lots of strength training. And I
yeah,
think when you pair it that way and it's kind of a last resort, it can be really positive, but that's just not how most people are doing it. So,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. Most clinicians aren't looking at it that way either. They're not looking at medicine and medications as an adjunct and something to aid and help benefit, the overall treatment plan. It is the treatment plan. It's the entire treatment plan. And if it doesn't work, then just up the dose,
Right.
just keep cranking it up, It's like, oh,
Yeah, which is
give
so
you,
wild.
yeah, it is.
I
Well,
can't
it's,
even imagine. I
yeah.
can't even imagine.
But that's how we treat everything else. You have high blood pressure, you put you on a medication. Oops, not high enough. Here's some more medication. You have
Right.
diabetes, your blood sugars comes down, but it's not down far enough. Oh, here's some more medication. And
Yeah.
so like here's you're overweight, here's some Ozempic, not losing fast enough. Here's some more Ozempic. It's not it's not a good way to practice medicine, and it's not looking at the patient as a whole. You're treating symptoms, you're matching problems with drugs, and you're not actually looking at why is the person sick in the first place. Because that matters,
Right.
because we're not actually supposed to be sick. The idea that, well, if we live long enough, then you're just going to get all these problems and diseases and things like that. It's just previously we didn't see all these things because we see the rates just going up radically. Well, we just didn't live long enough before to have these things. Like, yes, we
Sure.
did. That's
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah.
The life expectancy in the 1970s was basically exactly the same as it is now. So why were the rates, a fraction of what they are today
Right.
back in the
Right.
1970s? You can't blame that one on just not living long enough. Now
Yeah.
people are getting diabetes and cancers and other issues, autoimmunity, in younger and younger decades of life. They get dementia in younger decades of life. So
Yeah.
heart disease and all these sorts of things. It's getting more prevalent in younger populations around the world. I mean, I have friends that are doing studies in India with largely vegetarian population, and their B12 is almost non-existent. Their homocysteine is sky high, which can actually predispose you to developing atherosclerotic plaques because high homocysteine damages the linings of your arteries and can cause plaques. And they're finding that most of these people have normal or even ideal LDL and cholesterol, but you're having a 22-year-old having a massive STEMI heart attack or
Right.
stroke. You know, he as young as a 17-year-old boy had a heart attack, vegetarian, traditional vegetarian diet, had a massive heart attack, had to go to get stents and things like that at 17,
That's
right?
insane.
Yeah. So like saying that, well,
Wow.
people died in their 30s, so obviously we didn't say 17 is well under 35. And also
Yeah.
people, average life expectancy from birth was 38 in the 1850s in America. But average life expectancy from 10 years old, if you made it to 10 years old, was 60, right?
Right.
Because infant mortality was so high.
Yeah.
So if you made it to
Exactly.
adulthood, you would live as long as we do now. And these native populations, the hunter-gatherers, we know in anthropology textbooks right now, people can read this in the modern literature, that they live, the infant mortality rate's high, but when people die of old age, it's as high or higher than modern population. So the modal age is much higher. And they don't die of chronic diseases. They don't get heart disease. They don't get cancer. They don't get autoimmunity. They don't get diabetes, even though they're living into their 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. And until and unless they go to a more Western diet sort of way of living, and then that switches, and then all of a sudden, all these chronic diseases become the main health issue that they face. And so, yeah, it's right there in front of our face. And as clinicians, we should be the ones seeing this and pointing this out to our patients. And unfortunately, it's usually the patients pointing it out to the clinicians, and then a fraction of those clinicians are getting woken up by this, like Dr. David Unwin, who sort of got slapped in the face by one of his patients saying, why didn't you ever tell me that carbohydrates turn into sugar in the body? I have diabetes. That's a problem with blood sugar. Like, what the hell are you doing here? And he was just like, oh, Jesus, okay. And all this other sort of stuff. And she came off all her medication. He actually brought her in to admonish her for not taking her diabetes medication. She said, I haven't taken my diabetes medication in a year because I haven't had diabetes for a year. My blood sugar has been completely normal this whole time just by eliminating carbohydrates, which you should have told me about. And he was like, damn it. All right. And he looked into it, and there's a lot there. So,
Well, at least he
yeah.
woke up because a lot of
Yeah.
clinicians out there they hear that all the time and they don't.
Mm.
But thank God that some of them do because that's how we all are here now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that a lot of people do look at it like that. They have patients that come in and have some dramatic change, and they want to know. My mom's doctor was like that. She reversed her diabetes in 2 months by just doing carnivore and came off all of her medications and insulin and things like that in 2 months. And her doctor said, this doesn't happen. You don't just reverse diabetes. No, type 2 diabetes is a progressive chronic disease. It only gets worse. We can mitigate it and slow it down with medications, diet, and lifestyle, but it only gets worse. So how the hell did you do this? What the hell did you do?
Yeah.
And she's a bright lady. She has an MD, PhD from Harvard. Has a PhD in biochemistry, MD from Harvard as well. And so she was just like, okay, this is different. Why is this different? And she told her about what we were doing and what my sort of thoughts on this were. And she was like, okay, I'd really like to take a look at that and talk to him about it. And we had this hour and a half long conversation about this. And at the end of it, she was just like, right, yeah, all right, well, we're doing this, we're making these changes, and this, that, and the other. And it just was, it was very, well, it was just very nice to see that, she was
Yeah.
very interested. Like, yeah, this is, because she really did care about her patients,
Right.
and
Yeah.
she was bright enough to say, hey, look, that's abnormal, and I'm not just gonna, just throw that off and it's just a fluke.
Right.
When you see something like that massive, like you can't just chalk it up to a fluke. You need to investigate about why that is, and if they're doing something different, it's just one different. Okay, then you need to take that seriously and look into it and think about it. For instance, I have a patient. She has multiple sclerosis, and she was, on medications for this, but she was okay, but she was getting worse, and as people with MS do. And she went carnivore, very strict, just beef and water, and she started feeling a lot better and started doing a lot better. And so she went to her neurologist and said, hey, I want to come off my medication. I'm feeling better. I'm doing this carnivore diet. It's helped a lot of people with MS and other autoimmunity. And so I'm feeling better and I want to come off. And he just said, that's a horrible idea. You're being reckless with your health. You're going to end up in a wheelchair and you're going to die. And she was very worried about that. She was actually left there in tears. He was very, very abrupt and aggressive with her. And that sort of made her even more resolved to not take the medication and just prove him wrong. And which can be a dangerous thing to do. You don't you want to necessarily do something like that. But she was already feeling better. She had already seen her clinic. She'd already clinically started to improve, and other people had done this, and so she wanted to try coming off of it. So she came off of it and she just kept improving. She did not get worse. The thing is too, is you can trial these things off. And if you get a flare up and things get worse, right, go
Right.
back on the
Yeah.
medication.
Just go right back on the meds. Yeah.
Exactly. And so she just got better and better and better. 8 months later, she went in for an MRI off all medications. And her MRI showed a 40% reduction in her lesions, in her MS lesions, which has never been shown in the literature. I've never even seen a case report of that happening.
Yeah.
All the trials on medications are, okay, let's do this for 18 months and see if this reduces new lesions. Not will this reduce lesions, but
Right.
reduce new lesions, the onset of new lesions and things like that. And
Huh.
that's how we grade a new drug on if it, okay, so like this drug on average, people just get 4 new lesions in an 18-month period. Oh, this one only did 3. Oh, that's really good, right? No one is reversing this. No one is reversing it. Hers reversed by 40%. And her neurologist said, I can't explain this. I've
Yeah.
never seen this happen. I've never even heard of this happening. I don't know what's going on here. And she said, well, do you think it might be that diet I was telling you about? Absolutely not. And it was like,
Yeah.
it's right there for you, you know?
Well, it's just sometimes people, especially doctors, just because they've received so much training and they are just incredibly smart, in general, it's hard for them to get past that roadblock. It's
Yeah.
really, really, really hard. And I get
Yeah.
it. It can be a bit dogmatic at times, but for the few that are able to overcome that, that shouldn't have worked, it can't work, and they can get past
Mhm.
it, man, I mean, because that doctor, if he or she could get past it, they could write up her story as a case study and get it in the literature
Mhm.
because that is remarkable. And then other people might be able to see that and try the same
Yeah.
thing and reverse theirs as well.
Yeah. Well, we're doing a case series on this. We have like 12 people
Right.
that reversed their MS and shrunk their lesions and things like that. And we could have done it with 50, or more, but that's a good tight number to get some
Yeah.
attention anyway. And, so hopefully that will raise a lot of eyebrows because it is massively, impactful and it is different. It's not something that people thought. would be possible. This is
Right.
basically a fatal disease for a lot of people, especially
Yeah.
for like, the very aggressive, like primary progressive sort of cases and things like that. And then they're shrinking these lesions down. They're having normal lives. And, if you have a clear diagnosis, note this is true MS.
Right.
That was a real diagnosis. It's not like, oh, because that's the first thing they'll say. That wasn't a real MS
Yeah.
diagnosis at first
Of
or something
course.
like that.
Yeah.
But we have this. We have neurologists and radiologists showing like, nope, this is a real diagnosis, and then afterwards, now we're seeing improvement, and so this is a regression of this, and that's something new. So that's that's pretty exciting to see
That
that, and then
is.
hopefully we can get that to this neurologist and say like, look, it's not going to hurt your patients. You have all your nutrients. There's nothing harmful here. Saturated fat does not cause heart disease. Cholesterol does not cause heart disease. And we know that there's randomized controlled trials proving that, meta-analyses and umbrella reviews of those meta-analyses of randomized controlled trials proving that. And so you're not going to cause harm. So first, no harm. And this could help. And who knows? Maybe it helps. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't, who cares? You have the medication, right?
Right.
But you put them
Yeah.
on
I
with the
mean,
medication, see what happens.
and just eating beef and water or ruminants and water is nothing, It's
Mm-hmm.
simple, it's easy to do, it's delicious, and it's not super expensive. I mean, how much are these medications?
Oh God, I mean, they can thousands a month. I mean, they can be very,
Right.
very expensive. Well, depending on what you're getting, what autoimmune issue you can have, but it can be thousands a month. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Right. And you're not going to spend that much on meat. So, I mean, worth a
Yeah.
shot. MS is a horrible, devastating disease. So,
Mhm.
I mean, if I was suffering from it, I mean, I'm already doing carnivore, but if I wasn't, I would try anything, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very, very motivated when you're in that situation. And sometimes people don't want to know about it too, because they say like, "Hey, look, I reversed my MS. You could do this too." No, look, I'm going to listen to my doctor. My doctor says I need to do this, and that's very reasonable. But if it's something that you can add on, it's not either or. Something you can add on
Right.
with it, and it's not going to hurt you. We know that, and you never know. Maybe it makes you better, and if it doesn't, great. You're still doing the medication. You're not stopping it, right? And then a lot of doctors will say it's like, okay, well, if I change my diet, will that happen? No, diet won't have any effect. Okay, well, what does that mean? It won't have any negative effect either, because if they say, well, no, no, you definitely don't want to eat red meat because that'll make it worse. Okay, well, then you have to sort of weigh that up on what they are basing that off of and what we're basing that off of. But most doctors say, yeah, diet plays no role here. Okay, well then changing your diet is not going to make it worse anyway, right?
Yeah.
Some people will say, "Oh, we want to avoid red meat or something like that," based on no evidence. And then you ask them, "Okay, well, what's that evidence for? Is there a randomized controlled trial showing that consumption of red meat makes MS worse?" Well, no, I just think that it's bad and it can
Well,
increase
they're
cancer
just they're
rates.
just parroting the very limited amount of nutritional
Yeah.
training they received in medical school, 20 hours or less,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. They want to sound
So,
useful, so they want to say something
sure.
authoritatively, like, "Oh, yeah, well, we all know red meat's bad, so don't eat that." It's like, okay, is there a study showing that red meat makes MS worse? No. Okay, so then we'll ignore that. So yeah. So I was going to say too, what are some of the N of one studies that you've been doing as well?
Oh man, I've done so many. So I've done a lot of sardine related. So I've
Hmm.
done like 7, 10, 14-day sardine fasts where that's all I
Hmm.
ate. I did before and after blood work and DEXA scans just to
Hmm.
see what would happen.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Visceral fat loss on a sardine fast. It's basically a protein sparing modified fast.
Hmm.
Very, very fast. I think I got my visceral fat down to half a pound.
Yeah.
It went
Uh-huh.
down half a pound in 10 days. It was
Yeah.
amazing. I've done a 14-day carnivore bar experiment where I only ate carnivore bars for 14 days.
Hmm.
That one was interesting. I had some unexpected data that came up, results, I should say, that came up. That one, I didn't lose as much fat. I actually lost a little bit more lean mass, so that was interesting.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember when the sugar diet was all the rage a couple months ago. I did the sugar diet for 8 days and did
Yeah.
before and after blood work, DEXA scan, and continuous glucose monitoring. That was insane. Never again. It was
Yeah.
terrible. I actually gained like 5 or 6 pounds. I
Mhm.
have an autoimmune condition. I have Hashimoto, so
Mm.
sugar and ultra processed like candies and fruit are just they're really not great for me. My glucose was so crazy. But a lot of people in the community, the carnivore community, were curious about it and talking about it. And it's what I do. I
Mhm.
experiment on myself and I share the data so that people don't have to.
Mhm.
And I'm happy I did it, but never again. I just recently did a raw dairy experiment because a lot of the people, influencers and educators in this space talk about how raw dairy is not as inflammatory for people with autoimmune conditions. But that's just I'd only heard it. I hadn't really seen any data behind it. So I paired up with a raw dairy provider and started
Mhm.
experimenting with that. And I actually saw my TPO and thyroglobulin antibodies go down.
Cool.
And I have
Cool.
not been able to eat dairy in a very long time.
Mm.
So that was awesome because I love it. I love
Mhm.
dairy. I want my carnivore ice cream. So that was a really fun one, and I've got some more in the works. It's I love learning. I'm very curious. I read voraciously. My degree is in management and finance, but I've been studying nutrition and health and wellness since 2016, I believe, just
Oh,
for
nice.
fun, you
Hmm.
know. And I find it endlessly fascinating the human body and how you react to certain things and how different yet how similar we all are as humans. So it's fun.
Yeah, very good. Did
Yeah.
you, so the sort of the corollary to the sugar diet would be like fat fasting sort of thing, because what
Yeah.
what they've sort of found is there's a recent study that came out that showed just basically if you get your protein below 9% calories, total calories, that it would
Yeah.
trigger FGF21, which will increase
Right.
lipolysis by 400 kilocalories a day. So if you're going in the sugar diet, even though your insulin is so high, and that will normally block lipolysis, the FGF21 can actually override that. So for some people, they can actually lose fat. Of course, you're going to be malnourished. You're not going to
Right.
get all the vitamins and minerals and proteins and fats that you actually need. Bit of protein, but you certainly won't get the fat. And there are essential fatty acids that you have to have, or you get sick and die. And it's definitely fat soluble vitamins that you lose out when you don't have those. And obviously, all the glycation damage, the damage from fructose, the fructation damage that will build up over time. So even if you lose a bit of fat early on, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate to long-term health, and certainly won't, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
they found in studies that you can play around with the macros in other ways, as long as you keep the protein below 9% total
Right.
calories, that even if you have high fat, low carb, no carb, that will still trigger FGF21, and you'll get an additional 400 kilocalories of lipolysis. The benefit of doing that with fat is that A, it's actual food, you're getting actual nutrition, but also you're in ketosis. And we've actually known that ketosis increases your basal metabolic rate by 350 kilocalories. So instead of getting just 400 kilocalories of lipolysis, you're getting 750 kilocalories of increased lipolysis by doing it within a ketogenic state, and you're getting nutrition. So did you ever try the that side of it, like a fat fast, 90% of your calories from fat sort of thing?
No, not yet. I mean, the carnivore bar experiment was kind of like that.
It's like
But
80-20, yeah.
yeah, because it's like 35 grams of fat and 20 grams of protein per bar, but I don't think it was low enough to hit the 9% threshold.
Mm,
Honestly, when I'm thinking about it, I would prefer to do the high fat,
mm,
low protein, low carb, just because my glucose wouldn't be all over the place.
mhm.
I would be much happier. I wouldn't feel like
Yeah.
crap all the time. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something I've thought about, but I also don't really like to keep my protein super low just
Mm,
because I'm strength training a lot and I
mm,
really prioritize protein. For my carnivore diet, I probably do like 65% fat to 35% protein
mm,
most days. Sometimes I go a little higher, sometimes I go a little lower. But I don't know. I'm 41.
mm.
I just don't want to lose my lean mass, you
Yeah.
know? So doing that for an extended period of time, I think it'd be interesting, but I'm kind of over it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's got to be a line in these experiments where I'm just like, okay, I'm educating people in a way, but also I need to like take care of my own health,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the main thing is just you eat. I don't think of it as like, well, you have to have this much fat and that much. It's just you need enough fat, you need enough protein. I mean, these are nutrients. You just have a specific requirement for fat and protein, but fat and protein, I mean, those are the least part of the whole equation. It's the vitamins and nutrients and minerals, the peptides, the enzymes, all these different things that come with fat and protein and that whole food meal to you that is going to be provide proper health, right? And so
Right.
it's not just your macros, just
Yeah.
having that, but just everything that comes with that. And so,
Definitely.
but you just need enough fat. And I usually typically say that, well, our body has a limited capacity to absorb fat. And so I don't think that our body's guessing. I think our body's pretty damn clever, and it keeps everything really in very strict homeostatic relationships. And if you have five organs all working together just to absorb fat, I don't think there's an accident about how much fat it wants you to absorb if there is a limit.
Right.
And so I just say, okay, just keep eating fat until you can't absorb it. If you can't absorb it, it'll go out and that'll give you soft stools. Eventually, it'll give you loose stools. So eat enough fat that you get soft stools, don't get loose stools. And that's if you're not drinking coffee, tea, artificial sweeteners, magnesium, metformin, all these other things that can speed things along. And so eat as much fat as your body wants to absorb, and then get enough lean meat that your body, and that tastes good, that your body says, yeah, that's enough. Because your body tells you when it stops tasting good
Yeah.
that it's just bland and miserable, that you're like, stop eating it. I've not counted a single calorie, not counted a single macro in nearly a decade. And I stay lean and healthy and I feel great. All my blood work is optimal. And that's what I think is a good way of doing it. And if you want to sort of game the system and you sort of play around with your, okay, well, maybe I'll eat more fat and do this if I want to lose fat faster. I mean, you can do that, but realistically, you want to get on something that is just healthy and stable, and you're giving your body what it needs long term. You can do the exact same thing now as you do in 30 years from now, and you'll be able to maintain the same results. And I think that's probably a good way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I try to eat intuitively most of the time. I do track a bit. I'm not
Hmm.
religious about it. But with the experiments that I'm doing, I like to have, because people
Yeah.
love numbers.
Yeah.
They love to know exactly what you're doing because they want to do it too. I'm like, listen, I'm not you and you're not me. We're going to
Hmm.
have slightly different needs and goals. But yeah, yeah, I think in the beginning for sure, if somebody's coming to carnivore, just eat intuitively, eat until you're full. Exactly what you just said. Give it 90 days and just let your body get adjusted. And for most people, that's enough. And then after that period of time, if you've been really strict with it and you're not seeing results, there's tweaks you can make. There's lots of things you can dial in, but you got to give your body enough time to get used to it. And in most cases, the human body wants what you're giving it when you're giving it the protein and the fats. It
Hmm.
craves it. So everything will adjust. In some cases, no, but I think in most cases, yes.
Mhm. Yeah. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. And that's the thing too. I mean, a nice thing about these N-of-1s is that anyone can do them, and if you're not getting quite the results that you expect or you want, play around with things. You can sort of touch things up and see how you go and see how you react. Sometimes people that's the other thing too, is that some people get very focused on one angle, like weight loss, and sometimes that's a bit slower for some people. And there's metabolic issue. I mean, I measure people's numbers. They have insulin resistance, they have leptin resistance, they have other sort of metabolic sort of signs that their metabolism is very slow. But you check them again in 2 months, and those things have already started to improve. And so they improve, 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 and all of a sudden the metabolism is better, and then weight just starts falling off of them. And this is something
Right.
we've seen in the carnivore community going back, 30 years, that some people just have a slower time at weight loss, sort of a slower burn, and their metabolism's healing, their hormones are getting improving, and then after a certain amount of time, when their metabolism gets in order, all of a sudden it just starts shedding off their body, and it starts losing weight quite rapidly, like you would have seen and others have seen as well. And that's okay. But in that time, people can get pretty frustrated because they're like, I started this for the weight loss and I really want to do that. I spoke with one lady, and I see this all the time. that said, well, I really wish that carnivore worked for me because I felt so much better. And I came off my pressure medication. I came off my autoimmune medication. My skin got better, my hair got better, this got better, that got better, but I just didn't lose weight. So I guess it didn't work for me. And I was like, sounds
Right.
like it was working pretty well. It sounds like it was working
Sounds
great.
like it was working great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
sometimes people just aren't a bit, giving it a long enough. And then I asked her, like, what exactly are you eating? And it turns out she was still using artificial sweeteners and other sorts of things.
Mm.
So she, could have easily been stalled from that as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why as you mentioned, you do a lot of testing
Yeah.
because if we're just looking at the scale or just looking at the measurement, waist and hip and belly and all that stuff, there's only so much you can see there.
Hmm.
I really like looking under the hood. I do blood work on myself like once a
Hmm.
month just because of these experiments and stuff. But I think people should be testing. If you're in a trying to lose weight, trying to improve your metabolic health, you have to have some data points.
Hmm.
So every 3 months, every 6 months, I don't know how often do you test in your practice with your patients?
Yeah, typically, like if I have a new patient that comes in, we'll do a series of tests straight away. We might do a lot of blood tests and DEXA
Yeah.
scan, things
Get a
like
baseline.
get a baseline exactly. And then we sort of make some interventions and specific recommendations for them and their situation. It almost always incorporates a carnivore diet. It always incorporates a carnivore diet, but then might be other sorts of things as well. The diet does 95% of the work, and we sort of fill in the gaps with other sorts of things. And then I generally check about 2 months later, and look for what progress you made, and
Yeah.
have dramatic improvements. You'll get changes before that. I mean, I had a lady that sort of read the instructions wrong and got it like a month later instead of like 2 months later, 3 months later. But even then, her insulin had dropped in half. Her leptin had started coming down. Her blood sugar had improved. Like all these other sorts of things had started to getting better and better and better. So all her, vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all these things started coming up and on their own. And so even then, we saw things that were definitely going in the right direction. Had we waited 2 months, it would have been more dramatic. And
Right.
so, and that's sort of fine. But yeah, you'll see. I typically give it, sort of a couple months when get them on a plan, check
Right.
it 2, 3 months later, and see where they're at. And then after that, maybe 6 months or yearly or something like that, depending on what, or if they are on medication or if there's something, if they have Hashimoto's and we're titrating their thyroid dose and things like that, then obviously we need to see it more often than that as well. But
Yeah.
you can see results pretty quickly. I mean, I would give it sort of 2, 3 months to give it a good look, but I've definitely seen things change much faster than that too.
Yeah. It's remarkable how quickly it can change.
Yeah, leptin takes a long time to come down. Leptin takes a long time, and so you'll get leptin resistance first. That will precede insulin resistance, which will precede diabetes, right? And then and they sort of go back in that order too. The blood sugar starts coming down, and then the insulin starts coming down, and then the leptin starts coming down, and then the leptin will be coming down, but it'll come down slower.
Right.
But it could take, I mean, I had one lady that she was strict carnivore, just beef and water, beef, lamb, and water. And her leptin was over 100, should be 2 to 5 in the units that we use here in Australia. And so she was, they stopped measuring over 100. You don't have no idea how far over
Right.
100. But then, 3 months into it, she was down at 86. Great, but still wasn't really losing weight. But she was feeling better and her joints felt better. She didn't have as much pain, and these other things were all improved and wasn't really losing much weight, maybe a couple pounds a month, maybe something like that, but nothing fast anyway. But she was like, no, this is fine. I read about this. Sometimes it happens just slower for some people, and that's fine. We talked about that usually people with elevated leptin are usually in that slower burn sort of group. And then after 8 months on a carnivore diet, she came in. I was sort of seeing her monthly, and she came in. She visibly looked different. She looked much slimmer, and sort of got her on the scale, and she dropped 35 pounds in a month.
Wow.
And then the next month, she lost another 15 pounds, 16 pounds, and she just kept losing weight until she's now at her ideal weight and just maintains it, just eating the exact same way, just with different amounts, eating intuitively, letting her body tell her what to eat or how
That's
much to
awesome.
eat. And she was literally in tears because she says nothing's ever worked for her. She
Yeah.
would not eat for 2 weeks. She wouldn't lose weight. And you have these doctors, these idiots or trainers that say, well, if you need to cut your calories down to this, and if you're saying that you're not losing weight, well, I know you're lying, and I know this, and it's
Right.
like, well, I know you're an idiot because you don't know, you have no idea how human biology works. Because this
Exactly.
happens all the time, happens all the time. And people actually eat less and they lose less weight because it actually
Oh
slows
yeah.
down their metabolism. There's this thing
Yeah.
called winter that happens every year, and you have less access to food. The body has to slow down the metabolism so you can survive the winter. And
Right.
so maybe these people just grew up in Arizona and they don't understand how that works, but the rest of the world understands that fact. And so she said she'd been obese as a child, obese as an adult. She's never been able to lose weight. Didn't matter what diet, vegan, this and that, and blah blah blah. Nothing worked. And then now this is actually working, and she's at her ideal weight. She's in her 60s, and she's
Wow.
never been at her ideal weight. Now she's just so happy, and
That's
it's so easy for
incredible.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there a point for the leptin where it was kind of like a switch where it was like, okay, now it's low enough? Do you remember how low it had gotten
Her
from
for her,
100 down?
yeah, for hers, it was when she got hit. Well, when she started losing that weight big time, we tested her leptin then, and it had dropped down to 21. So
Okay.
still four times what
Yeah.
optimal is, but I find that more people will be able to lose weight in that sort of territory on a ketogenic carnivore diet. Um, some will still have a bit of a slow burn until that sort of comes down a bit more, but it doesn't have
Okay.
to get under 5. It needs to get sort of low enough that your body starts. Because leptin is sort of a keystone hormone. It goes to your hypothalamus and controls the expression of multiple hormones that have to do with your metabolism, and they stimulate hormones out of your pituitary, which stimulate all the rest of your hormones in your body. So it's right at the top. It affects that whole cascade of hormones coming
Right.
down from your hypothalamus. And so when you get leptin resistance, so the leptin is being blocked and blockaded, your brain can't see the leptin, and your brain thinks that you're starving to death. Leptin comes from your fat tissue and from stretch receptors, but predominantly from your fat tissue. And so if your brain can't see the leptin at all, it thinks you're emaciated and dying. And so it's like, okay, well, we need to shut down your metabolism, slow everything down, and then anything coming in, we're storing as fat. That's what we're doing,
Yeah.
right? So it increases your appetite and stores more fat, and also locks down your fat, and reduces lipolysis. And there's multiple hormone patterns in that. I mean, even MSH, we don't even think about that, but like melanin stimulating hormone, that bodybuilders will take that because A, it will make them more tan, but
Right.
it will also shred fat, and that is controlled by leptin as well. So there's sort of 6 major things that I focus on with when someone has elevated leptin. Things that can block leptin basically and mask leptin, so your brain doesn't know what the hell's going on, thinks you're emaciated. Insulin blocks leptin. Fructose blocks leptin, comes with sugar, which tends to increase insulin and will block it on its own, so it hits you twice. Um, Alcohol blocks leptin. And then the plant lectins, the plant toxins called lectins, will also block leptin. Some of these lectins can actually bind to insulin receptors 5 times more tightly than insulin. So
Mm.
even in ketogenic diets, find that they've actually done these controlled trials with ketogenic diets that are better for weight loss and health versus every other diet that's ever been done. But then they looked at this idea with lectins binding to insulin receptors, and they said, okay, well, what if we do a ketogenic diet that's low in lectins? And so it eliminated a lot of these lectins out. That ketogenic group lost significantly more weight than just the traditional keto diet.
Interesting.
And so that would be a carnivore diet, right? You would eliminate all lectins that way. And that's actually what we see a lot too. A lot of people go from keto, they get a lot of improvement, lose a ton of weight, feel a lot better, but they sort of just not quite getting to where they want to be. They drop the rest of the vegetables, and woof, and that's what did. And that's what it did for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I dramatically started losing weight when I just dropped green vegetables and things like that, and I was already ketogenic. I wasn't eating carbs already. And it was dropping the greens and eating more fatty meat that actually, cut out whatever the hell those were doing to me and stimulated my metabolism. But so those lectins can bind to insulin receptors. That can shut down lipolysis. That can stall weight loss. But they can also block leptin. So they can bind to leptin as well and make it so your brain can't see the leptin. Cortisol. Cortisol will so high stress, poor sleep, those sorts of things. That will raise blood sugar, that will raise insulin, that will block leptin independently. And then funny enough, blue light. So all these stupid artificial lights and LEDs on our phones and computers and all these lights. I always try to use natural light. So I don't have lights on in here unless I have to. Yeah,
It's like 10 at night here, so
I
I
know.
am drowning in blue
I
light.
know. I'm sorry. But
I'll be
but yeah.
okay.
But yeah, those sorts of things.
Yeah,
And getting out and getting natural light, using natural light, trying to avoid the unnatural lights, putting blue light filters on as many things as possible, using incandescent bulbs, the filament bulbs as opposed to the LED bulbs, those sorts of things. That can help. That can absolutely help. And so, but going carnivore hits four of those right there, you know,
yeah,
and then just improving your sleep and taking care of your light hygiene and things like that. I mean, and then you're home. And I see
yeah.
people's leptin just fall down. And when it gets down to a certain level, for her, it was about the 20s. And I see that a lot, that you don't have to get down to 5 to start being able to lose weight rapidly. I've even seen people with leptin over 100 that they could lose weight, but that's the exception. It's not the rule. For some reason, men more often than women, if they have elevated leptin, they can still lose weight more often than women can. So there are other hormonal
Yeah.
factors at play there that I haven't quite figured
I
out
mean, maybe it's
exactly.
just because, we can have children and, our body is going to be a little bit more sensitive to making sure we're not starving to death. That's
True.
what the first I would think of.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's certainly going to be some factor there, some sort of hormonal factor that's triggering in there. Some doctors say if your leptin goes over 100, it's not possible for you to lose weight with diet and lifestyle alone. You will have to get surgery, weight loss surgery. And that's not
Hmm.
true. It's just it has to be a diet and lifestyle that addresses leptin, addresses that leptin and will reduce that leptin. And so I see that. I see that people's leptin come down, but it can take months and months and months. So again, I like at over 100, and then 3 months in it was 86, and then 5 months after that it was 21 for this
Right.
lady in particular. And it wasn't until it sort of got to that into the low 20s that she started losing weight, but then it really started coming off. And now her
Yeah.
leptin's completely normal.
Hmm.
It's like
It's
3.
amazing.
So
Well, the human body is remarkable, as we've
mm,
talked about several times in this pod. I mean, I think it's a protective mechanism. The body is, trying to keep you from starving. It's very intelligent. And when you start
mhm.
doing the right things, it just goes back to its set point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And just, we just get out of our own way and let our body do its thing. We'll be fine. That's also,
Exactly.
even if we didn't have the randomized controlled trials showing that cholesterol was not a problem, and actually lower cholesterol, more people die of heart attacks and strokes with lower cholesterol as opposed to high cholesterol, and vegetable oils instead of animal fats, they'll get worse off um, with the vegetable oils. Even if we didn't have those, I mean, just intuitively, if you just don't eat anything and just let your body do what it wants to do and just reset itself, your LDL goes up, your HDL goes up, your total cholesterol goes up, your triglycerides go down. That's what your body wants to do. And then you
Yep.
start eating and everything starts getting all broken up. And then we think that, oh, that's good. Oh, thank God, because our body's trying to kill us. Even though
Yeah.
fasting is associated with actually better health and lower cardiovascular issues. So how is that? If cholesterol is the cause of heart disease, and when you fast, cholesterol goes up because your body wants it to. That's where your
Right.
body wants to set it. And yet we're trying to manipulate it and change nature and say, no, 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 nature got it wrong, biology got it wrong, God got it wrong. No, it's all wrong. We have to
Yeah.
micromanage our own biochemistry, even though we've never had to do that ever. It's pretty strange, but yeah, it doesn't. All those things are don't fit with me. But I think that just let your body do its own thing. Your body knows how to be healthy. Your body's supposed to be healthy. All life on Earth is healthy. All species are healthy. You can have individuals that may have different reasons why they may not be naturally healthy and they may need some help. But overall, we're all pretty healthy and should be healthy. And so if something's wrong, that means that something's happening to you, or maybe you're not getting the right nutrition, or you're getting exposed to something that's harmful. There's a saying that was attributed to Hippocrates, who knows if it's actually him, but it said, before you try to heal someone, first ask them if they're willing to give up that which is making them sick.
Right.
Sort of has
Yeah.
that understanding that you're supposed to be healthy, and naturally you would be healthy. If you're not healthy, you're doing something. to yourself or something's been being done to you. And I
Right.
think that's something we can definitely learn from.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. So what are some of the recipes that you have for people that are, but I mean, for me, I just make steaks. So that's it's pretty
I
straightforward recipe.
know you're a steak guy. So
Yeah.
I have my book right here,
Hmm.
Complete Carnivore. I have 80 carnivore recipes in here. I actually just released a video today
Right.
of an appetizer. It's a meat lovers pizza roll up. So
Hmm.
simple. Just take some shredded whole milk mozzarella cheese, sprinkle on some bacon and some sausage, put a pepperoni underneath, bake it for 7 minutes, and then roll it up and eat it. That's all you got
Nice.
to do. So simple. I have, gosh, I have so many different recipes, Dr. Chaffee. I can't even
Hmm.
think of them right now. Lots of different meat recipes. I kind of like to do, I made a Popeyes chicken, spicy chicken sandwich, completely carnivore.
Hmm.
That original sandwich has 50 grams of carbs, and mine has 2. The
Nice.
bun is carnivore, the chicken, everything. It's so good. And then I really like the Wendy's Baconator, but I wanted to make it fully carnivore with a bun and everything. So I was able to do that, like smash burgers, double cheeseburger smash burgers with the carnivore bun.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I don't eat like stuff where I'm doing recipes most of the time. I'm
Hmm.
like you. I eat like beef, butter, bacon, eggs, and steaks.
Hmm.
Occasionally some chicken wings. I'm so boring. But a lot of people out there, especially in the beginning, need a little bit of variety. If you're coming from a diet where you're eating a bunch of side dishes and different things, plants and all that stuff. So that's kind of what I endeavored to do with the cookbook portion of my book was just provide as many tasty, fully carnivore recipes as possible for people.
Very good. And so the Popeye's
Yeah.
chicken, was there some sort of breading on them? Obviously not bread, but what the sort of the sort of
Yeah,
crust and things
yeah.
like that?
I experimented with it. So I ended up, pork rinds, ground
Hmm.
up pork rinds you can do, or like a pork panko. But I actually liked it better with just, what did I end up doing? I think it was just a hot sauce, which, some
Okay.
people are going to be using hot sauce. Some people don't. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You can do the pork panko breading. But I found it pretty good that way.
Okay.
So just depends on what the person prefers.
Yeah, definitely. I like the pork panko. That works really well for a lot of things,
It does.
and it tastes good too.
That's
The
always a plus.
yeah the rolls I saw like bread rolls that people made. I think I saw it from actually can't remember who I saw it first from, but anyway, it was like basically an egg, some butter, and some pork panko, and then you just throw it in like the oven or an air fryer or something like that. And we actually make a whole loaf of bread. It tasted like just like the best cornbread you've ever had because there was a bit of that crunch to it, like the cornbread sort of thing, but it was like meaty and like had this like savory flavor, and it was like, yeah, it was just basically like amazing cornbread. And you dump butter on that as well, and then it's like even
Oh,
better.
so good.
Yeah,
You're making me hungry.
I
I
know. I
can't
was
eat this
literally like,
late.
yeah, I was like, like my mouth was watering. Um, okay, great. So,
Oh,
well, tell us a bit about the book as well. Besides
sure.
the recipes, what do you have there?
It's a big boy. It's a
Hmm.
complete volume. So when the publishers got a hold of me to write this book, they said, "Do you want to write a cookbook?" And I said, "Not really. What I want to write is a complete in-depth guide to the carnivore diet, and I can also add some recipes." So it's both. The first 200 pages of the book are a complete in-depth guide to the carnivore diet, a gradual carb reduction guide for people that want to do it that way.
Hmm.
Talk about just so many things to get you started. There's a whole chapter on monitoring your progress. We've talked a lot about blood work in this podcast. Lots of information if you're curious about that. Just a basic blood test, functional medicine ranges, that you
Yeah.
can aim for, and tests like that. I have a whole chapter on troubleshooting. So on my YouTube channel, as you know, you get comments and questions all the time. And when I get the same comment or question enough, I'm like, okay, well, what can we do to either fix this or answer this question? So I've taken all of that information that I've learned over the past 3 years and put that into the troubleshooting chapter. So if you are running into issues on carnivore, you can head to this chapter and check it out. And then there's the 80 carnivore
Mhm.
recipes. So it's good for people that are just starting, good for people that have been on it for a little bit. It's good for people like you that have been on carnivore forever because
Mhm.
there's something for everybody in this book.
Mhm.
Um, and it was really fun and difficult to write. I'm glad that it's in my hands now and
Yeah.
I don't have to do any more work on it. But yeah, I really, I'm passionate about helping people. I really want to get as many people as humanly possible to optimal metabolic health baseline. Because if we are all healthy, just imagine what we can do. Just the
Mm.
creativity and the ideas and the productivity and just you feel so much better mentally and physically when you're healthy. If we don't have our health, we have nothing. So that's I'm really hoping that this book will help a lot of people get to that optimal metabolic health baseline.
Well, that's great. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I did a talk called "The Real Healthcare Crisis," causes and solutions, and you talk about any so oh we have the problem with health. We need to get the budget. We need to do this. We need to that's all aside. I mean, it doesn't matter what system you have. If you the burden of chronic disease the growing burden of chronic disease that we're seeing now is going to sink any system. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're doing and what the best system is. It will destroy all of them. And Harvard did a study. Harvard School of Public Health did a study several years ago where they looked at, or a few years ago, where they looked at just five chronic diseases. And these aren't even necessarily the most expensive ones, but they're some of the most expensive ones. But diabetes type 1 and type 2, cardiovascular disease, mental health disorders, cancer, and what was the last one? COPD. Okay. So not even autoimmunity, not even dementia, none of these sorts of things. I mean, the top two grossing drugs last year were both autoimmune drugs, and one was $24 billion in gross sales, and the other was $6.5 billion in gross sales. Well, Ozempic was number three at $4.5
Wow.
billion in gross sales. So 30 billion in gross sales, and then you get to Ozempic at 4.5 billion. So it's big money. It's big, big money, and it's big money coming out of our pockets. And basically, we're turning into indentured servants, where a big chunk of our money has to go. Taxes, 50% of your income goes to the government. So 6 months out of the year, you're working as a slave for the government, and then now they're taking another 30% chunk out of your finances so that you can pay after taxes, so that you can pay just to stay alive and just to stay
Right.
functional and things like that. So you get these tithes and things like that. And we're just turned into chattel and just generating wealth for other people. Um, so they found that just those five diseases, that for a direct and indirect cost of just treating those diseases, that cost the world globally um, over $8 trillion in 2010, and that's estimated to be above $14 trillion by 2030. So that's increasing, that's getting worse,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that's taking into account to inflation, things like that, sort of equivalent sort of numbers. So that's going to tank any system, right? Just that right there, just for those five. But then you have to look at the other sort of costs that are involved as well. Well, what about people? They're sick, they can't go to work. In a
Right.
public healthcare system, people don't like to talk about this, but here in Australia, in Europe, and all these Canada and things like that, you either pay with money or you pay with time. And here, to get into see a specialist, it can be years to see a
Right.
specialist for the first time. To come in to see one of us in neurosurgery, it's a 5 year wait period right now, minimum 5 years.
Wow.
If it's
That's
not an
wild.
emergency, yeah, if it's not a life or limb threatening emergency, you are waiting. And then you come in, and we see them, and then we try to work you up and try to do things conservatively, try to get some injections or PT or all these other sorts of things. And if that doesn't work, then okay, 6 months later, or maybe it's barn door, they need surgery. Then we sign them up for surgery. Then it's another year or two to get them on the list,
Wow.
right? And so
That's wild.
yeah, so these people are waiting 6, 7 years. They're suffering the whole time. And guess what? They're not working, so they're on disability, right?
Right.
So Harvard looked at this and said, okay, well, what about, lost income and losses to the economy due to disability and not inability to work and all that sort of stuff, lost work, sick days, blah, 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 blah. Having to go on disability, not being able to work, all that sort of stuff. That cost the global economy between 2010 and 2030, or will cost about $42 trillion, trillion with a T, right? And
That's
we lost
insane.
14 trillion. It was costing about $14 trillion with a T every year just to treat these diseases. And we're losing $42 trillion from the economy from people being out of work and not being too sick and not being productive and things like that.
Right.
The biggest cost was early death. So, someone has a heart attack or a stroke and dies in their 30s, or, as we're seeing more and more in their 20s, and you've lost out on their entire lifespan of productivity. And
Right.
so estimated cost for just those five diseases for early deaths in 2010 was around 22, 23 trillion dollars per
Wow.
year in early deaths. And 2030, that's estimated to be about $43 trillion dollars per year.
Yeah.
So you're talking about $60 trillion dollars or so a year that we're losing just by being sick, just from those
Right.
five. And we count about everything else, you can add to that. So think about that. You free up $60 trillion dollars a year. I mean, those are sums that are just unimaginably large.
Yeah. I mean,
And
you can't even actually conceptualize how
no,
much money that truly is.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And the thing is that's representative of people's lives and suffering and productivity, right?
Right.
And so you're putting now $60 trillion dollars of time and productivity and health back into the economic system. I mean, can you imagine that? Like if we just had all that, if we had none of this healthcare, chronic
I
disease
know.
issues since the 1980s, I mean, we would have colonized Mars. Certainly, we would have had
It'd be
stations
like
on
Star Trek. We
Jupiter.
would
Yeah,
be in so
exactly.
many different galaxies.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean,
Yeah.
imagine about all these very clever people that right now are being taken up with, you know, causing problems and then giving a pill for the solution. Just that just
Right.
goes away. And all these very clever food scientists, these very clever, pharmacologists and researchers trying to find new drugs and things like that. What if they just put that massive brain power and those resources and energy and finances towards something actually productive and beneficial for humanity? Imagine where we would be right now. Imagine
Oh,
where we could be in 10, 20 years
yeah.
if we were able to reverse that. And every single one of those things that I mentioned, those five: cardiovascular disease, mental health disorders, cancer, diabetes, COPD, all of those, or at least the vast majority of those cases, are diet and lifestyle related,
Yep.
right? And we can
Exactly.
improve these things and maybe even put them into remission or prevent them from ever even happening. I mean, COPD, don't smoke, right? I mean, that's an easy one, right? That
Yeah.
that you
That's
can
a
you can
no-brainer.
fully prevent. You can fully prevent that, and these other ones you can as well. And then all the other things, the autoimmune diseases, the dementias and things like that, you can prevent a lot of that, the majority of that.
Yeah.
And just imagine like how much of that would free up of this intellectual power as well as resources. It's incalculable how
Yeah.
much benefit that would provide to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about that every single day. Every
Hmm.
single day. And I'm very hopeful. I'm optimistic. I think that people want to be healthy. They just need to be given the right information. And that's
Yeah.
partly what this is. That's what you and I both do on our YouTube channels. We just got to keep getting the message out there, and hopefully somebody can hear this
Hmm.
and just try it for 90 days and see what can happen. That's all you
Totally
have to
agree.
do.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, Jenny, thank you so much for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure. I yeah, totally agree with that, and I love the sound of the book. You can send a copy out to me, and I'd love to check it out. But that sounds great. Getting people started on this. How to bridge that gap if you can't just jump straight into it. If you need to ease into it, the recipes to help you through. I think that's a great resource for people, and I'm really excited for that to come out. Where can people find you, follow you, and get your book?
Sure. So you can follow me over on YouTube, my name, Jenny Mitich.
Mhm.
And then from there you can get all my other socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that jazz. As far as the book is now available for pre-order. It comes out on November 4th.
Mhm.
You can pre-order it on Amazon, Target, Books A Million. Internationally, I think it's Brooks. I have all those links. And yeah, it's available for you very soon.
Perfect. Great. We'll put that in the description. People can take a look at that, and this should be out before then, so people will be able to pre-order that. And yeah, so people definitely check it out and follow Jenny and see more of her work on her socials. And yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was super fun.
No problem. And thank you all very much for joining. Hopefully that was helpful for you. If you did find that helpful, please do hit like, subscribe if you haven't, and send this to someone who you think would benefit from that. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.